Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. And now, Financial Renaissance with the Emms.
And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Happy Sunday morning to you. Good morning to all our listeners all over the country and actually all over the world. Saying good morning or good day to the people in England. I don't know what their accent is. Buenos dias to the people in Costa Rica. I love all the feedback that we've been getting. You are watching us live at facebook.com/notdumbeddown. Or you can go to facebook.com, search for Sensation Station Network, hit the like button, and then you can see the show. Or you can go on TuneIn, go to Sensation Station Network, and you can take us with you on your travels. Now, social media time. That's right. You can follow me on social media, Twitter at Financial Ren, at Emma Knows Money, and on Facebook and IG, Emma Knows Money, and also Financial Renaissance. And then on YouTube, you can go ahead and do a search for Emma Knows Money and hit that subscribe button, please. Okay, I need more subscribers. Coming up on the show, we have my Market Movers and Losers, which will, also I'll be talking about Davos and what's happening with the sustainability index. But first, I would like to introduce our guest today. We have a very special guest with us, Lisa Kaufman, the owner and aging life care manager of Senior Care Options. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Emma. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. It's been a long time coming.
It has
been. You were one of the first people to fill out your questionnaire. You filled it out months in advance.
It was.
Oh man! So tell us about Senior Care Options.
Well, it's a aging life care management practice that I started in 2001, and it has grown. I have 6 care managers that work with me now, and we are able to serve the needs of the greater Atlanta area.
And this is kind of in your blood, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
So
my mother, you alluded to this, my mother started a care management practice when she lived in Chicago, and she's now retired, but she was so excited she's a nurse, and she was so excited to really interface with her patients again, and it was effective, and I thought that really is more my speed.
Nurses are the #1 most trusted profession in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, they're not compensated well.
No,
they're
not
not treated well, but they are the most
that.
trusted. Yeah, I was listening to
Cool.
NPR.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So what is aging life care management?
It is sort of a consultative practice where credentialed clinicians and professionals guide families who are taking care of loved ones who are older or have disabilities. Okay. So anyone who requires some kind of care could use the help, guidance, advice, support, and advocacy of a professional.
And full disclosure, I've had to call Lisa before. I had a client, I don't know how many years ago, it was probably 5 years ago, who we realized something wasn't quite right. They had made dinner for 10 people, and out of the 10 people that they cooked dinner for, 5 of those people were no longer with us. They had passed away. And so I believe she was having a series of mini strokes, and we couldn't get her in to see her doctor. It was just a big to-do. But one of the first calls I made was to you to help out. So when do families typically, why should people reach out and call you?
Well, anytime somebody is struggling with the transition is a great time to call. Okay. If you're unsure or you think your loved one might need care, that's a great time to call. People don't shop at assisted livings because that's the way they want to spend their Sunday. They'd rather be listening to your show. So,
yes.
Of course. So if you're shopping around, then there's obviously a need and you already know it.
Right.
But people then think, well, I don't need it yet. Okay, if you're looking at assisted living properties, you do need it and you know it.
Yeah,
somewhere way deep down
that's
inside.
where you may end up, and it's best to start
right.
paying attention
Absolutely.
now. Now I know that people typically feel that their family members will get better, or I think people should call you before there's a crisis.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that once a
I would
person
love that.
hits a certain age, and that's what I want to do on the show today, is really get people to be more proactive in planning for the care of our aging loved ones. Waiting till the last minute, you don't have a lot of options when you do that.
No, you don't. I do want to just interject really quickly.
Go right
There
ahead.
is something that I am starting to see. There is a new segment for like a new trend we're seeing in the industry where people are proactive planners. They have no children. They may not be married any longer or never were. They may not have a significant other or a partner. And they're planning ahead for their own care. They don't need it now, but they want somebody to know what needs to be known about them before they need it. And
This
I
is
love
so important.
that. So it's not just about your loved ones, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, your mom, your dad. It could be for yourself if you don't have a support network that you want to care for you.
Now, people tend to think, and I don't know why, why do you trust the government? I don't trust the government, but then when it comes to long-term care, the government will take care of me. So
Yeah,
let's
no.
talk about the truth about this.
Okay.
There are two government programs. One is a
Yes.
federal program, one is a state-run program. And they're called Medicare, which is the federally run program. And we all pay taxes. We all pay taxes, so we pay into Medicare. And then there's something called Medicaid.
Yes.
Okay, do you want to tell us how those kind of fall into this picture?
Sure. Medicare is sort of the insurance program for adults with disabilities. If you are approved as someone who has a disability and you get SSDI, then you can get Medicare. If you are over 65, you can get Medicare. It pays for your doctor's visits, rehab, medical equipment, and hospitalizations. It doesn't pay for lots of other things. I do understand, and I'm going to try to be as politically correct as I can, that Medicare Advantage plans, and you can't see, I'll do air quotes.
Yes.
There's a lot of bells and whistles, and every year there's bells and whistles. And one of the things that they're currently doing is home care. Regular Medicare does not pay for home care. We're not talking home health.
Right.
Home health is the therapeutic, PT, OT, speech, nurses, wound care. That Medicare pays for.
So almost like with, like if you have to go into rehab and then you come home, they may come in for a
They
couple
may
of
come
hours,
in,
but you had to
exactly.
have gotten hurt, like broke
You
a
need
hip.
a doctor's prescription for that.
Right.
And then Medicare will cover it for a very finite period of time.
Very short period.
Very short. And
Very short period.
Here's the other little trick that you need to know is it varies according to where we are in the financial fiscal budget for the country. So the government is prescribing how much therapy you get, and it varies according to where we are in the budget.
Well, hey, our budget, our deficit just topped 1 trillion for the first time last year, for the first time in 7 years. So we don't have a budget for it.
No. No.
To be quite frank, we don't have a budget. We're not collecting enough tax revenue. So there is no budget for Medicare to provide long-term care, any type of long-term care benefits.
We poor Xers can't pay for everything.
No,
I know y'all want us to, but we really can't.
we cannot. So what about Medicaid?
So Medicaid is the program for indigent care. It is very limited as to what it pays for. It is usually for, especially in Georgia, it pays for nursing homes. It may pay for some waiver programs in the community, but honestly, the wait lists are so long, and it's very hard to actually get on service. There's just not enough people to provide that level of care. So for the most part, we're talking nursing home care.
Right. Now, the way that Medicare works is, and she mentioned you have to be indigent, so there's a certain
Medicaid.
amount for
Sorry,
Medicaid,
Medicaid.
excuse me, Medicaid, right? So what happens is, let's say you own a house or your grandmother owns a house and she has to get on Medicaid and she's provided care in a nursing home. Well, once she passes away, the government comes back and they'll take possession of that property. They're going to get paid back from her estate for what they paid out for nursing home care.
That is correct.
And this is why having a long-term care policy makes sense, because certain states have what's called a partnership. So let's say you pay, $10,000 in premiums into a long-term care policy. Well, the government, when they do come back to claw back what they paid out, they will leave that $10,000 in your estate. And when we come back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms, we're going to talk about who pays for care and how to make the right Medicare choices. Lisa's going to be here, so drop your questions when we come back in 180 seconds. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Happy Sunday to you all. Coming up on the show, we have my Emma Knows Money tips and also my market movers and losers. But first, we are here with, I want to say thank you to a couple of groups, the Urban Entrepreneur and the Internet Radio Station Promotion, which are Facebook groups. But I want to talk about the heavy burden or the high burden on caregivers because it ends up becoming a financial concern. As I'm building financial plans for clients, the one question that I always ask them is if they're going to be responsible for anyone's care. Do they have anyone in their family who's special needs or who's elderly, that has any chronic or terminal illnesses, things of that nature. Among the higher burden caregivers, 57% are providing financial support to a loved one. 75% of caregivers have an income of less than $25,000, if you can believe that. And then 77% are concerned with meeting their own financial needs. So higher burden caregivers have an average of 1.8 chronic conditions. So the stress levels from providing care for elder loved ones or just loved ones, period, it's taking a toll on our nation. And so that's why I have Lisa here today to make sure, one, you can still retire when you need to retire, and two, you don't stroke out before it's time for you to retire. Because providing care for an elder loved one, it literally, it takes a physical, it takes a mental, emotional, financial toll on you, right?
It does.
So who pays for this care? Who pays for care? How does care get paid for?
It depends. And the best way to have the most choices is if you self-pay.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're relying on Medicare and Medicaid, you don't have as many options. In fact, with Medicaid, you have very few
slim to none,
options.
Right? Okay.
If you are able to self-pay in some form, your own savings, your own retirement, your 401k, your long-term care insurance, your
So
pension.
you're okay with long-term care? Because that's what I advocate. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I advocate for.
It's asset protection.
It is. It's risk management.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
You pay a couple of pennies for lots of dollars.
That's right.
In the future.
Yeah.
So.
And it absolutely helps out. I think a lot of people think that just Social Security will take care of it or just their pension. It really needs to be a multifaceted approach and able to really afford care. The more assets you have, and I don't mean that as you have to be super wealthy, but you do have to have something.
Yeah.
Then you have more choices.
So what are some of the costs? We're talking about costs. We're saying long-term care. I mentioned that in 10 years, the average cost for assisted living or care to be provided is going to be about $200,000 a year. I know that the healthcare cost rises at about 6% annually, but I cannot fathom paying $200,000 a year for care.
The bulk of the cost is in caregivers. It's a really low-paid job. It is expensive. That's why a lot of people end up in assisted living, because they can share those caregivers, and it makes it more cost effective. If you have someone in your own home, but you have them as much as you really would need them. So sometimes people cut corners because I can afford if they come in, let's say 5 days a week from 12 to 7. Great. What happens the rest of the time?
Yeah, overnight, because a lot of people need overnight care. They need help, and it's usually when you can't do 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living. So
that's
feeding
when
yourself,
long-term care insurance.
Feeding yourself, taking yourself to the bathroom, incontinence or continence. Wait, incontinence or continence? Basically, you're having bladder control problems.
Yeah,
right?
the problems are the incontinence. If you're continent,
so
the
incontinence.
You can hold everything.
Okay.
And that's important. So those are the activities of daily living. That's where the most care is that personal hands-on care. And sometimes it starts off with just supervision. Does this person actually do what they need to do in the shower, or do they stand there?
Right. Are they locking the doors at night? Are they leaving the stove on? Do
they have sundown so that they If they're sundowning and they're up at night and they're sleeping during the day, well, Lord only knows what they're doing when everybody else in the house may be sleeping.
Yes.
Or not sleeping, which kind of goes back to the concern that you had for the caregiver burden.
Mm-hmm.
And statistically, if there is a dementing illness, the person who takes care of the person with dementia is much more likely to predecease the person they cared for.
Say that one more time, please.
The caregiver of the caregivee, the patient, often predeceases the person they care for, which in layman's terms, they die first, which means the person who was sick is still needing care.
Yes. And that happens again because of the stress levels,
Correct.
the financial stress levels, the
Correct.
emotional stress levels of things of that nature. And again, with long-term care policies, when you buy them, one of the things that they're doing now is they are allowing people to pay their family members as caregivers.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes the most sense in the world. If you're going to have a family member staying with you overnight, they get to get paid for being inconvenienced and being at your home.
Right.
So I don't see, to me, most Americans can't afford to not have long-term care insurance.
I agree with you.
Even in its smallest form.
Well, I think people think they're saving money by having family provide care, but the deal is they are unpaid caregivers, and they're working 24/7. And when you're taking care of another adult human being and yourself, you're living two lives.
Right.
It's exhausting.
It is. When we come back, we're going to talk about the boom of assisted living facilities and communities all over our country and here locally in Atlanta. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. And we are back on Financial Renaissance with the Emms. Say, listen, if you miss an episode of the show, you can always catch it. We turned it into a podcast. It's available on wherever you get your podcasty thingies from. We're available on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and also iHeartRadio. Just look for Financial Renaissance with the Emms or Google Emma Knows Money. We have with us today Lisa Kaufman, who is the owner of Senior Care Options, which is a management company. You kind of facilitate
care management.
You navigate like, oh, my mom is, my mom fell and broke her hip and she doesn't remember her way home and blah, blah, blah. I call you, and then what do you do?
We evaluate the situation. We do a needs analysis. It's very comprehensive.
Okay.
And then we can develop a care plan, which is the roadmap.
The roadmap.
Where you're going.
So you provide the roadmap for how we're going to care for our elder loved ones
Who
throughout.
the resources are, what the recommendations are, how to find the care, what these resources need to be doing for you, all of that.
Do you break down the gobbledygook that the doctors say?
Oh, yes.
You do?
We speak medical.
You speak medical?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
That's
So
one of the hardest
things we do for our ongoing care management clients is we advocate with them in doctor's appointments and at the facilities. So if it's in the hospital or at the nursing home, we know what the rules are and how the game is played, and we are on your side.
Wow. And that is worth every penny.
Yes, it is.
It is worth every penny,
Yes, it
because
is.
what you don't know is what's going to hurt you.
That's
So
right.
let's talk about this. Like everywhere we look, there are assisted living communities popping up, right? I have an idea of what they should do. They should have low rent for like college students to, keep
Girl.
everybody together.
I agree. That's what I think the future is.
That's what I think it is, and
Yeah.
it's happening in several places around the country. Also, lower cost housing for seniors and students. But what do you want to say about the assisted living facilities? Either here locally in Atlanta and across the nation. What is it that people need to know about these assisted living facilities?
I think the thing that concerns me the most is that there is a caregiver shortage across the country. So who's providing the care in these communities?
I did not know there was a caregiver shortage.
There is a it's an extreme caregiver shortage.
Okay.
And in the Atlanta area, and I imagine a lot of other places, they're all drawn from the same pool. So they work for home care companies, they work for the assisted living, and whatever gig gives them the most money, they will drop you like a potato and go to wherever they could get a quarter more.
So they need to make more.
They need to make more.
They need to make more.
They do need to make more. And what they do is important.
It's very important.
Yeah. So a lot of people then, I know this is not what you were asking about, but a lot of people hire independently, and I never advise that. It's cheaper but then you have all the liability.
What do you mean independently? Like I'll find someone on the street, I'll go on Craigslist and say, hey, I need someone to take care of me,
My mom
Mom.
had this great housekeeper, and I just thought she could start taking care of my mother, and she'll do it for $10 an hour. Okay, that's great. She never got trained. If she gets hurt on the job, that's you paying
Yeah.
liability for that. If she suddenly befriends your mother and becomes her power of attorney, you got a huge legal battle coming your way.
Man, oh my gosh.
Yeah, she may steal things. She may say she needs money for her car. If she can't show up for work, it's your problem and nobody's covering. No background checks, no
Yeah.
drug screens, no nothing. I always tell people to use an agency.
Yes.
But there is a shortage out there. We need more people getting into this.
So again, if you're looking at, careers of the future,
This is-
nursing is one,
yeah.
and then also caregiving
Absolutely.
is another one that you can get into. And quite frankly, they do need to be paid more
I
because
agree.
I don't feel comfortable. I've been to some of the assisted living facilities. And the station is in a really nice neighborhood in Atlanta. It's in Buckhead, and I've been to some, and I've seen some of the workers there. And because of what I've seen, I've made a decision that I want my parents in my house, or at least on my property. I don't want them somewhere where I can't just come in 24/7 and just pop up because I just don't feel comfortable with the
No, you
quality and
can.
caliber of people.
Almost everywhere they give you a code, and you could go in at any time. You can always visit, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's
It's
not
not
the
the same. So if people are, not here in Atlanta and they don't have the ability to reach out to you for your help, so you just work, the people that you deal with are local in
Yeah.
the metro Atlanta area?
Yes.
Now, what do people do in other states?
Well, I belong to a professional association.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a member for probably 17 years now. They've
Okay.
been around for 35.
Okay.
It is the Aging Life Care Association, ALCA. And you can go online
Mm-hmm.
and find somebody that you can plug in your zip code, find somebody within 100 miles of you
Okay.
at aginglifecare.org.
Okay. So aginglifecare.org.
Aginglifecare.org.
Okay, and that will help you find a care
A
manager.
care manager,
in
somebody
wherever you are.
credentialed, somebody who has experience, RNs, social workers, other medical professionals, certified in care management.
Okay, okay. So now, sometimes when people find out that, their parents have had an issue or they're losing their cognitive abilities, they tend to feel like they'll make a couple of calls and then they freeze
Yeah.
and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Or it'll get better, or they're getting better. And, when people first start, losing their cognitive abilities, they kind of float in and out.
Yes, they do.
During the early in the morning, they're fine. So when you call them first thing in the morning, like, yeah, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do that today. And then later on in the afternoon, they're lost.
Yes.
So what do you recommend to people who want to wait and see?
First of all, that is a choice. So a lot of people think sometimes by doing nothing, they haven't chosen to do anything.
Okay.
And it is a very passive choice, but it is still a choice. Doing nothing doesn't solve anything. And I do find that there is both analysis paralysis, where you research so many options you can't make a decision. That is a problem in and of itself. And then it's the folks who are waiting for a sign, or they think their mom's going to be okay. There's a lot of denial.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely ties into why people don't make choices.
Okay.
For the seniors themselves who cannot, that's one problem, but some can make some decisions, or they can be a party to their decisions,
Right.
but choose not to because they don't think the inevitable is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem.
Well, when we come back, we're going to kind of jump into the things that we need to do so that before you're in a crisis mode. So come back in, I think, about 300 seconds. We are back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms. That was quicker than 300 seconds. It was actually 2. And listen, you are listening to us live at ssnatl.com or sensationstationnetwork.com. If you want to watch the show and you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and do a search for Sensation Station Network, hit the like button, and then you can actually see and hear everything, because I saw a comment that we can't hear the guests if you're watching me live on my own personal Facebook page. You can, if you have comments, go ahead and drop those in the comment section, or you could text us at 678-613 5857. And what we're talking about today is aging life care. Okay, what do you do in that final quarter of your life? You know, that last quarter. What do you do with your life? And it's an important conversation. People don't like to have it because they think that if they talk about, you know, growing old and dying, that they're going to grow old and die. Duh. It's gonna it's what's gonna happen, right? Nobody wants to be here, but I think we're starting to look at death a little bit differently in this country. We've always looked at it very negatively and so final, and just the way that I look at it now is just a little bit different. So we do need to have these conversations, and the importance of having these conversations is so that when something happens, you don't know what's going on in your family member's life. Period.
Yeah.
You don't know, you know, if they're in college and they're studying, if they've got finals, there needs to be a plan so that people are not caught, I call it flat-footed, caught off guard and not know what to do. So it is extremely important that you do have some type of final or elder care plan that your whole family knows about. One of the things on my website, emmaknowsmoney.com, we have a 10-step contingency plan. You can make a contribution and pick it up, or you can find one free out there in the sphere, you know, on the Google. Somebody would have one. But what I did was I put together a workbook that would say, like, you know, when does your trash go out? Who is your handyman? Who does the lawn? How often do they get paid? Who are your utility companies? All the information that you'll need to run somebody's household if they can no longer speak for themselves.
Yeah,
you know, it
that's
is
great.
very important. When you're in crisis mode and somebody ends up in the hospital or, God forbid, dies, you can't figure this stuff out. And it can be right there in front of you. It can be, you know, there's a stack of mail and you can't figure that stuff out. And I created this this workbook because when my grandmother passed away, we were clueless. It was, you know, watching, you know, very intelligent people bump heads because nobody could figure anything out. And I never want to see that happen to anyone. It's horrible to be grieving or to be very sad and trying to figure out financial
Absolutely.
stuff at the same time, which is why I have Lisa here today. You are here to save people money. And you're
Actually, we do. Yes, it costs money.
It does.
But it saves money and time and heartache and stress.
and making mistakes. And again, it's the what you don't know that hurts more than what you know.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And there's so much of in providing care for our elders, and there's so much that we don't know. So again, you know, before the break, we talked about why it's better to have a family care plan now than wait till we're in crisis mode.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wanna
That's
speak
the
on that?
worst time to make a decision. A lot of people do. They wait until crisis mode, and then the information comes at them fast and furious, and it is always more expensive when you are in crisis mode
Why?
because you're going to need a higher level of care, or they don't understand. You're looking at expensive legal work, and it's traumatic and tears families apart. If you
Yes.
plan ahead, I guess this is what I want to say. A lot of people don't want to be a burden. I know you've heard that. They don't want to be a burden, so they don't plan because they don't plan to be a burden. Not planning is what makes you a burden.
Thank you. I couldn't have said it
Oh my
better.
gosh.
It's the not planning. When
That
not planning
makes
is a
me
plan.
nuts.
Yeah, not planning is a plan to disrupt your family's life.
Having no plan, to what you were saying earlier, and you're trying to scramble to figure things out, that's when it becomes a burden.
Listen, the new tax law that's out, there are tax advantages of buying long-term care insurance. If you're under 40, you're able to deduct money. If you're up to $420 based on your premium. And if you're 71 or over, you can deduct $5,200 or a little bit over that. So there's a scale based on your age. The older you are, the more that you get to deduct. So the federal government is giving you an out. You know, they're giving you a
Incentive.
incentive for
Yeah.
it. And then the state governments are giving you an incentive to also have long-term care because they'll take the premiums that you pay into long-term care and keep that in your estate for your heirs. So it is very important that you do some type of planning, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have any classes? Do you teach classes?
I do presentations all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
if people want to reach you, if they want to learn more, how do they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me at Lisa K at seniorcareopt.com. Foulkes.com.
And Opt is OPT.
That is Oscar Paul Thomas.
That's right. And then if you want to call their office, their number locally in Atlanta, well, it doesn't matter where you are, 770-579-9177. And you definitely want to give Lisa a call, or, reach out to her, because you want to find out, how does this planning work? You can also call our office at Greenwood Wealth Management at 404-633-9952. I can put you in touch with Lisa. And again, no matter where you are in the country, if you need to find a care manager,
yes,
right? You can Google Aging Life Care or go to aginglifecare.org. Again, it will save you a ton of money if you do this preventative work ahead of time.
Yep.
And long-term care, they've got different ways of skinning that cat now. They've got the traditional long-term care, which there's less than 12 companies that offer the traditional long-term care. When I started in the industry, it was over 100. So insurance companies know that, hey, there's people are living too long and they're needing too much care, so they're trying to get out of the business of selling new policies. But there are what's called hybrid policies, where it'll be a combination of life insurance and long-term care. So you pay, say, $10,000 into a policy, and then you'll have $40,000 towards care, or if you're paying $60,000, you'll have $280, or, so on and so forth. And if you wait till you're over 80, it's like a 1-to-8 ratio on your money. Even some annuity companies have long-term care riders. So this is definitely something that you want to look into. And Lisa, thank you. Thank you for taking time,
Thank you, Emma.
being here with us today.
My
This has
pleasure.
been a long time coming, and you will come back?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, awesome. We'll be back with Financial Renaissance with the Emms.
Cash, scratch, green. Benjamins, assets.